Thank you for tuning in. This is the Classical Cafe. I'm Caitlin Matson, and we have a green room this afternoon with Alex Underwood, who is the founding artistic director of the Ad Astra Music Festival. It is an annual festival that takes place in Russell, and musicians descend upon Western Kansas. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, Caitlin. Thanks so much for having me.
So grateful you can be here to tell us all about the festival, which opens in just a couple of weekends. Before we dive into what you have planned this year, a brief history about the Ad Astra Music Festival. You're celebrating a milestone this year.
We are. This is our 10th season, which I just, that seems unfathomable to me. It seems like yesterday when we were starting, and just to consider how far it's grown and where it is today, it's just taken its own journey that I don't think any of us could have anticipated. And I just feel so fortunate that we are where we are. But in 2013, I was home for the summer and I was at grad school, and I thought, okay, I want to do some concerts or something and sort of share the love. And so I planned 5 concerts that just with some of my friends, and before you knew it, that just went really well, I guess. And people started asking if I would do it again. I wasn't really anticipating that. And then I just kind of, I don't know, it sounds cliche, but I leaned into it. And then it sort of became the Ad Astra Music Festival, and we've just been doing it ever since.
And you've done some pretty spectacular things, including world premiere works.
Yes, commissioning brand new operas, doing the Kansas premiere of major works, all sorts of things that are all over the map and really diverse, and just things that are exciting to our artistic team and to our community.
One of the wonderful things about the music festival is that you truly believe in cultivating and highlighting talents that we have right here in Kansas. It isn't simply guest artists from out of state. And that's all levels. You have a community choir, which most summers takes part in at least one work. And in that community choir, you have students, of course, community members, music educators, but then also you'll highlight musicians who actually live and reside in Kansas as well.
That's so crucial to the mission of what we do. Sometimes being an artist in Kansas isn't, there's not a lot of us, right? It's not a major city where there's a thriving art scene, but that doesn't mean there aren't really interesting artists who have a lot to give and who have an interesting voice. And so I love kind of collecting those people and letting them shine, or giving them full reign to kind of do their thing, or whatever, and just finding ways to kind of partner and just kind of whatever makes sense. And so that's just always been such a feature of the festival, and I'm just so thankful for that, because out of that are just some really beautiful relationships, are some really beautiful artistic experiences, and from a education and community perspective, just a way to enrich our lives. I feel so fortunate personally, as somebody who lives in Western Kansas, that I get to spend my summer just making art and working with really, really interesting and cool people. So
Alex is the choir director at Hayes High School, and he is originally from Russell. So
yeah,
this is very much full circle. It feels, what does it feel? I don't even know what the word is. It's this beautiful cycle, I think. And I know you and Alex and I are friends. We've known each other for years now. So we seem familiar to one another. That is why. But we've had many conversations about this, how there are brilliant artists to be found in every corner of every small rural county in the state of Kansas. Small does not mean insignificant. Rural does not mean uncultured.
yes.
And how wonderful to have people who understand that and go out and find them and give them a platform for sharing and joining together. And it's all the fine arts. I'm looking, people can't see this, of course, because it's radio, but I have Alex on Zoom, and I'm looking at a print of this season's festival poster, which is behind him. And you can see it if you go to their website at astramusicfestival.com. Org, is it org? At astramusicfestival.org. And you can see it is a print of a local Russell artist, Angela Mueller. So it's multidisciplinary.
Absolutely, which again, like speaks to the core of my being, but also when you are from a small town, sometimes it's just collecting whoever it is, right? If there's not 100 of us and there's 3 of us, then we just accept who we got. And sometimes that creates really interesting work. So we're always so happy to be featuring visual artists with our poster work and just in any way that we can think of. We have a local playwright that we often engage, and obviously musicians of all different walks of life. So.
All right, the 2023 season. What do we have going on?
All right, so we open our season next weekend, and we start on a Friday night. And it features someone who grew up in Western Kansas from Victoria. His name is Matthew Pyatt, and Caitlin has sung with him before. He's a great pianist. He's based in San Francisco, and he's an assistant director and coach at San Francisco Opera. He's spent a couple contracts the last few years at the Metropolitan Opera, and then a lot of years before that at Chicago Lyric. And he's been at the festival quite a bit, and we're always so thankful when he gets to come to Kansas. And this year he's inviting a friend of his, Eliza Sunshine, a great soprano who's New York City based, but works a lot in San Francisco, including with Matt there. And so she's gonna sing a recital of some art songs and some opera arias. And I'm just really excited about that to sort of kick off our season. And then we are doing a musical. We did our first ever musical last year, the production of The Fantastics, and that went really well. This year we're doing a show called Next to Normal. It opened on Broadway in 2009 and it won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, which doesn't happen for musicals very often. And it's a cast of 6 and an orchestra of maybe 5 or 6. And we have a really amazing cast, which speaks to the thing you were just talking about earlier, involving sort of local people with professionals from around the country. And in this case, we have 2 Broadway veterans leading the cast. Julie Fuldesai has been a swing for tons of major shows on Broadway, including like Sutton Foster's swing for Joe and Little Women. Catherine, she played the role of Catherine in Newsies. And plenty of other, she was in Sunday in the Park with George with Jake Gyllenhaal, like a really amazing resume, and she is incredible. And then Trey Ellett was Mark in Rent on Broadway for several years, has worked in the business tons, they're friends. And so they're leading that cast, but then alongside 2 college students, Noah Swati and Mary Little. Mary Little's from Hutchinson, Noah is from Sterling. And Nathan Hilger, who is a Russell native but lives in New York City, is here for this production. And then one of my former students at Hayes High, he just graduated, Seth Tripp, who's going to Roosevelt in Chicago for musical theater in the fall. And that's our cast. So it's just such a wonderful show and experience, and I can't wait to share it with people.
A fabulous collaboration. We're going to take a short break and come back and talk about the rest of the season, because that was just opening weekend. There's a lot more. It's 3 weekends, the festival, yeah?
Yes.
So we'll welcome Alex back in just a few moments. We're going to hear a snippet of Beethoven's Ninth, which is just so happens to be the closing performance of the Ad Astra Music Festival the last weekend in July. We'll be right back. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, that is actually programmed for the Ad Astra Music Festival. It is the finale of the festival the last weekend in July. And I have Alex Underwood, who is the artistic director of the Ad Astra Music Festival, talking with us all about it. It is a festival that spans, this summer it spans 3 weekends. We covered the opening weekend, but now we got to get to the final 2 weekends. Tell us a bit about the second weekend of concerts that you have planned. Now, this would be Friday, July the 21st, that weekend.
Yeah. So on the 21st, the second weekend has sort of some more, I would say some more interesting programming. The opening and closing weekend are probably more traditional, but the second weekend's a little more adventurous. So on Friday night, both literally and figuratively. And so Friday night, we open with a program we're calling Tuning, which is one of the translations of the German word Stimmung, which is a work by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, who's a German composer from the mid 20th century. And it's an experimental work for its time. It's for 6 singers and 6 microphones and like a track of some sort. And it's very kind of meditative music, I would say. It's avant-garde, and the composer wrote it. He was inspired by a trip to some Aztec ruins, and so the co-artistic director, my friend John Irving, is leading this project, and he's like, Alex, we need some Kansas ruins to do this performance in. And so I was like, okay. So I'm driving around the Russell countryside trying to find a,
Some
sort of a
ruins.
right fallen down, barn or farmhouse, and we found the right one. And so we're planning to build a campfire and to do it at sunset. So the performance starts at 9:30 p.m. It's about an hour long, so it won't be a super late night or anything. But that's how we'll do that. We have some great singers, a lot of New York people from Trinity Wall Street, etc.
Oh,
Some people
fantastic.
have been at the festival before, so a really great crew. So that'll be the Friday night. It's a really interesting project. It's
It
probably the most
is.
interesting work we've done. So
But yes, and definitely the festival has a you guys have a name for yourselves as doing these like there's no is not a word. If
correct.
somebody comes to you and they want to do something that you might call, as you just said, adventurous, other people might call crazy or weird. You don't
Yep.
say no. You say, let's
No.
make it happen. Whether that's performing in the middle of an abandoned Kansas field at 9:30 at night, or otherwise staging an entire opera outside in 105-degree heat, making the art happen, no matter the circumstances, no matter how bizarre the request. And I think that sort of adventurous spirit has been really well received, and it's appreciated. People have responded well to it.
Thank you. Yeah, that is sort of one of our brand, I guess, is that we really want the performance to be rich in every way. And it also is partly driven by, we don't really have traditional performance spaces. We don't have a big auditorium in Russell. So because of those sorts of things, it sort of pushed us to kind of think about other venues as options, which
Yeah.
is true of our Saturday performance, which is the 22nd. This is something that'll be its 9th year, and it's one of our most popular. It's called Jazz at the Barn, and it's at Granny Mae's Pumpkin Patch, which is in Dorrance, Kansas, about a 15-minute drive from Russell. And Brad Dawson, who's a Russell native, and he's been on faculty at Fort Hays State University for a really long time, he leads that performance, and he brings some of his friends, jazz friends from Kansas City, out to fill out the band. And we have cocktails and popcorn, and the sun is setting, and it's always just like a gorgeous night to relax and to spend it with friends and to just be in the elements and hear some really beautiful jazz. So we're doing that again this year. And then on Sunday, the 23rd in the afternoon, we're at the Basilica at St. Fidelis in Victoria, Kansas. It's the Cathedral of the Plains. It's one of the 7 wonders of Kansas. It's an incredible venue. We always feel so honored getting to perform there. And this is a work called Voiceless Mass. It's by Raven Chacon, who is a Navajo composer. And this work won the Pulitzer Prize for Music last year. It's a major work. And this will be the Kansas premiere of that work. And it's for organ, string quartet, some clarinets, and a flute and percussion.
Mm.
So there's no singers at all, which is kind of unusual for us. Our staff is very singer heavy, so we tend to do lots of vocal music, but this is an example of us doing something without any singing. And it's a really, really interesting piece. It was written for a Thanksgiving Day premiere, where they were unveiling a cathedral in a church an organ at a cathedral in Milwaukee. And Raven sort of said, I don't really do Thanksgiving. That's really not my, his favorite holiday, I suppose. But he thought that this would be a really beautiful way to sort of just consider space and gathering spaces, who has access to gathering spaces, whose land these spaces are on. It's a really beautiful message and a really, really beautiful work. And I can't wait to hear it myself and to also to share it with us. And again, how cool to get to hear, the newest music
Yes.
live and by professional musicians and in a gorgeous space that is ours. So
And the festival ends with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. However, there is a spin on it.
of course, because we can't just do anything straightforward. That's against our rules. So if we're gonna do Beethoven's Nine, why, where, what's the situation? And it is such a celebratory symphony and such a iconic symphony. And to be fair, our audiences don't often get to hear the most standard repertory live either, right?
Right, this is Western Kansas. Your
Yes,
audience is Western Kansas. You do have some people traveling, but for the most part, you are reaching rural citizens who
correct,
hear Beethoven's Ninth, they love it, they listen to it on Radio Kansas, but
right.
have they ever gone in person?
Probably not, because if you're driving to Kansas City or to Wichita, where are probably the closest places where you're going to hear that work, your chances are you're probably maybe not like seeking out the symphony performance necessarily, because that's such a rare thing to get to go in the first place. So by having it at home, it's just a chance to get to hear that. But instead of the German text, if you're familiar with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the first three movements are all orchestral, but in the fourth movement, he adds choir and four soloists,
Which is the Ode to Joy.
which is the Ode to Joy. And it's the first major symphony with a chorus at the end of it. So Beethoven, in his time, is breaking new ground here. And he chose a brilliant text, a Schiller text that is about community and togetherness and joy and beauty. And so we decided that we would commission a Hayes playwright, my really good friend, Catherine Trishman, who's directing Next to Normal. She wrote a text for in place. It's in English, and it celebrates the beauty of Western Kansas.
I love it.
And so it's about the seasons and all these wonderful things. And so this is definitely our biggest project. We're going out with a bang. It's 2 performances on Friday and Sunday, the 28th and 30th of July. It's at one of our beautiful churches in Russell, St. Mary's. And we have some amazing soloists, including Caitlin Matson, alongside my friend Kyle Van Schoonhoven, who just made his debut at the Met in April, and a Juilliard guy who's our baritone, whose name is also Kyle, and just some great instrumentalists, a brilliant conductor, Anna Lenti, who is just graduated with her doctorate from Eastman and teaches at Williams College. And we just have an amazing team, and that's going to be such a special performance. So if you want to hear something grand and overwhelming and such a massive expression of joy, this is definitely the concert not to miss.
A lot of information to review it all and to get a preview of the upcoming festival and to buy tickets. Go to adastramusicfestival.org. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and for all of the amazing work you do in Western Kansas.
Thank you so much, Caitlin.